Hello, welcome back to my channel. This is not Alicia here, and I am giving you another how-to knitting tutorial. This is Tutorial Tuesday. Thank you all for watching. Let's go ahead and get started. So I have showed you guys other tutorials on how to knit heels. This one will be a true afterthought heel. The reason why it's called a true afterthought heel is because I knitted a tube sock until I got to the point that I want cuff. You know, I knit toe up, so I knitted the toe and I kept knitting until I got to the point where I wanted to end the sock, and I have ended my sock, and now I have this big tube. I still need to weave in ends, but I essentially completed this sock, and now I'm ready to insert the heel. And the reason why it's called a true afterthought heel is because I didn't put any waste yarn to measure where my heel is. I just kept knitting and knitting. If you want to do an afterthought heel, that's when you get to, when you're knitting, depending on if you're coming cuff down or toe up, wherever you're knitting, and then you try it onto your foot, or you can try it on a sock blocker, and when you get to this portion of your heel, if you're doing toe up, or this portion if you're doing cuff down, then you will include a contrasting color yarn that's easily to recognize, because whenever we pick up these stitches, we're going to cut that yarn, and that will be an afterthought heel. But being that I didn't do that, I did a true afterthought heel. I just kept knitting, so I had to try it on my foot, and this is where my ankle is. If you see this, you'll see that the heel starts here and goes up to here, right? So this is where you would want to put your stitch marker whenever you are ready to do the afterthought heel, because you're going to insert your heel here and then continue with the heel, and it'll make more sense once we get started. I already have one pair already completed, and I did the same thing as far as putting my stitch markers, because I did a true afterthought heel, and then I inserted my heel, and then now when I put it on, my heel is inserted right there. So some people are nervous when it comes to knitting, cutting your yarn, because you're like, oh my gosh, all this work I did and now I'm about to cut it. You don't know how it's going to act. But this is how it came about, with me cutting my yarn, doing my true afterthought heel. And the method that I use, you can barely see the joins, and I will show you guys all that when we get started. So get your supplies and let's go ahead and begin. So what you're going to do is you're going to take, I like doing magic loop method. You can do double pointed needles if you like. However you knitted your sock, you can use that method. I just like to do magic loop method. So what you're looking for is these stitches. Okay, so what I have, let me see, right here. So I have stitches. This is best for me because my color is different, so I'm able to see like which color I need to pick up. But where I need to insert the heel is right here on this pink line. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up this pink line, because that's where my heel starts, and then I'm going to pick up two above it. So however you do this, right, whenever you're measuring your heel, you are going to place where it starts, and you always want to pick up either where it starts or one below. If you say you place it right here, right, say you place your stitch markers right here, you want to pick up the stitches one above and one below where you place your stitch marker. Me personally, I like to pick up where I place my stitch marker, and then pick up one or two above you know, where I place my stitch marker, skip a row and then pick up the one that's above it, just because I like to make sure that my feet is well into, I have enough room for my feet, because this leg portion can vary for me. I just honestly don't have no particular preference when it comes to that. So what we're doing is we are going to pick up, so right here I have this pink line, right? So I'm going to pick up this first pink row. So I'm removing my stitch marker, and I went, total is 64 stitches. So what I want to do is pick up 32 stitches, right? And then when I go 2 rows, I want to pick up another 32. So I'm counting as I go, making sure that I pick up this first stitch. And the first stitch will be the right leg. I just choose the right leg. You can do left leg if you want, but I just want to choose the right leg, and I'm doing right on each stitch. So whatever you use, make sure you do the same leg throughout the whole thing. So all I'm doing is picking up 32 stitches, and I'm counting as I go, and I will meet you guys back here when I get closer to my 32. But just pick up 32 stitches along, or however many that it takes for you to pick up to do your stitches, whatever amount that you've already started with when you knitted your sock. Then pick up that amount, half of that amount, and then we're going to go and pick up the other half. So I will meet you back shortly. So you want to make sure that whenever you're picking up the stitches, you want to count to make sure that you picked up the right amount that you have, because it would suck to keep going and not know where you are or how many that you have, and if you have less or if you have more, then you're going to have to accommodate that when you're actually working the heel. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to work my way, I'll say this way, and pick up the rest of the stitches. So what I'm doing is I'm looking at where this stitch is protruding out of, and I'm skipping one row and I'm going to the next, and I'm just going to do the same thing across, picking up my 32 stitches because that's what I started with, right leg only, and going across on the other side. So I will meet you guys back here when I am finished. Okay, so now both sides have 32 on each side. So this row or that we left blank, that we skipped, that inside is what we're going to cut. So grab your scissors, and this is the part where everyone starts to freak out, but there's really no reason to freak out. So if you pull this apart, you can see the row that's stitched. So what I like to do is I just guesstimate where half is. If you want to count, you can count half, because we're going to use, when we cut it, we're going to have one side and one side, and we're going to leave these 2 stitches unworked, and that will make more sense when we get going. But right now what I want you to do is to find where half point is, and you see this stitch that's right in the middle. That's what you're going to cut. So I'm trying to find that stitch, and you can pull it apart like this if it makes it easier. Pull it apart just to open it up and get that stitch right in the middle. And if you want, you can get your needle, pull it on your needle, okay, and then while it's on my needle, I can just cut that stitch, and we've cut our stitch. So now what I want you guys to do, you can take that same needle and you're going to start weaving this line in and out. So you're just going to follow, and you can look at it and tell, but you're going to follow where this stitch is, and you're just going to weave it in and out, just like so. Weave it in and out until you get to the last 2 stitches. Until you get to the last 2 stitches, you're not going to work that. So continue to just weave, following where the stitch is and weaving it in and out until you get to the last 2 stitches, and do not weave those in or out. So right here is what I mean when I say leave these 2 stitches unworked. So you see how this stitch is coming from both these 2. I'm just leaving it like this. What you can actually do is just put it inside your sock. We will weave that in later. But then now I'm turning it around and I'm working this side. So then now I'm just going through and I'm just doing the same exact thing that I was doing on the other side. Alright, so right here we are done, and I left these 2 unworked, and I'm just moving that stitch in there. So now this is what, not that stitch but that string, this is what yours should be looking like. You should have this big hole, and now you're ready to insert your contrasting color yarn or whatever yarn you're using for your heel, but I'm just using my contrasting color.